You're listening to the Seed to Exit podcast with your host, Reese Keck. Here you'll learn from startup executives, founders, investors, and industry experts. You'll learn from the best about building amazing products, scaling companies, raising capital, hiring the right people, and more. Subscribe and listen in for new episodes and enjoy the show.
All right, I'm joined today by Mr. Eugene Zhang. Eugene, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for the invitation. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. So I'm really excited to talk with you. You've had an incredible investment record over the course of the last decade or so. One of them, of course, being your investment in Zoom, which we'll get into. I'm really excited to dive in and talk about some of the things that you're seeing in the market, some of the reasons and decisions that you've made in terms of backing immigrant founders, and where you think the future of the market in terms of technology is going to go in the next few years.
Okay, you okay? Is that okay? It's a loaded question, so yeah.
A lot, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So let's start out with your background. So
yeah.
You were originally from China. You did your graduate degrees there, and you moved here back in the early 90s, correct?
Actually, 1990 exactly. Yeah, beginning of
1990 exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
What is it that drove you to America? Did you want to come to work in Silicon Valley and tech specifically, or did you just sort of fall into it?
Yeah, so that's quickly, during those days, we went to the college, right? My class entry year was 1980. Right now, in hindsight, that was a very special window in China, very, very open, very, very different from today. And then we had, at that time on campus, American teachers teaching us secondary English, the second language in native, we all love that conversation, and sometimes go out for lunch or something. So was the dream, American dream was kind of built pretty deep at that time. It's pretty deep, and then a bigger trend for student finish degrees and then go board study in America. That was the number one dream, and then if other country is the second or third. So that kind of I was one of those. That's kind of the background. Yeah, the how and the American dream was whatever the melting pot and all that message.
Yep. Yeah. So you moved here in 1990, and I know you had one other role, but then your second role was at Sun Microsystems, which at the time was already one of the leaders in technology, doing a mixture of hardware, software. But in addition to the larger corporate experience, you also joined a side project from, I think it was a coworker you mentioned, right?
Right.
Called Vera, which later got acquired. Am I getting that correctly?
Yeah, that's totally true. So I after graduation, I was happy to landed at that time. A lot of students, from Taiwan, they just go to Silicon Valley. So I kind of lucky found the first job, and then at the Sun Microsystems, actually was my second job. The first company, MDO, was not doing well, all that during the recession. Yeah. So Sun was super, during those days, Sun Microsystems building the workstation was a rising star in Silicon Valley, right? At that time, the CEO was Scott McNealy, and then was a super great experience. And then I lucky working with a lot of smart people. One is a coworker, from Japan, and then we got a support at that time, right? Got a support from Sun Microsystems management, and then he has this idea. We team up, develop this tool on the side actually, and then with the company's endorsement, and then we'll work with the outside company. They are responsible for selling Vera product in the semiconductor design automation space, and we were responsible for writing the code, do the moonlighting work with all the endorsement, all that from all parties, and then that was the kind of the background. And then later on, the company was acquired. Yeah.
Got it. So that was sort of your first taste of the true Silicon Valley startup experience, right?
Yes.
So how did that change the future of your career?
Yeah, so that was really you are right on. So you kind of we came to US, had this dream, right? So, then you work on a real job and then you witness this outcome, you realize, and then you kind of see where you go for yourself in the future, right? So clearly you could choose to be a technically climb the tech ladder, right? Another is be somehow relate to entrepreneurship. So I clearly decide not to take on the technical ladder, right? And then just do what possible. So that really planted the seed, that's my interest, all that. So, later on, on investment, start a company again, all that stuff. So really, really that was the kind of a real experience to say, wow, this could be true, right? Not earn a fixed salary. That was pretty good compared with China during those days, right? China in the early 90s is very different from today. They're very good money, right? In that context, but you have this kind of dream, be entrepreneur, selling company, make a lot of money, of course. That was just like, wow, this is true. This is real. And why do I do everything else? I need to go that direction. That's kind of the background.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, the idea that something can go from just an idea to a huge exit, it's one of the most tantalizing things in business, in my opinion. So you had the big exit. Now, obviously back in 2010, I think is when you founded TSVC, but there's a pretty good gap in terms of years in between there. How did you get from that Vera exit to founding your first firm?
So there's a long this career of working with the company was extremely lucky. After Sun, and then there's a concurrent to this company later on was sold, but I joined all to do with my coworkers. They refer me. Then I went to Cisco. I say it's a better star, okay, a new star rising, right? So I joined Cisco, and then after 2 years, and then my former boss at the Sun Microsystems, he became Juniper Networks, one of the 3 co-founders. We knew each other, and then he came to knock on the door, took me, brainwashed me, right? Because Cisco was doing super well, right? At that time was the position to be the first $1 trillion company. It never happened. And stock every like a split, right? One share became 2 shares every 6 months. It's like a crazy. But I got a brainwash to abandon the ship, join Juniper, to claim to have the best software talent in networking space, and then the best hardware talent. So then I joined, and then that company took about 3 years to went public. It was super fast, right? So by today's standard, 3 years.
Right.
And then
3 years is incredible.
Market cap was 70 billion. So then after that, I worked there actually six years, and then I kind of 2003 started another EDA company, and then 2010 started. Then I started also concurrently doing angel investment. With some kind of little luck, also have quite a 2 company doing really well. And then 2010, work with the school alumni, decided to launch this angel fund called the Tiga Angel Fund 2020. Yeah.
And that was in 2010. We were sort of on the tail end, still somewhat in the financial crisis. What was it like launching a fund in that environment?
It's very different from the top-down approach. It's like if you hindsight look at it, we were 100% bottom up. It's not like we have a pile of money and then find the best asset to invest. This is the typical allocator's mentality, right? There's nothing wrong with it. You have the money and see which asset you should deploy. We were totally different. We were just 100% because we had some success, and we got, at that time we had 2 in the community. It's all 100% empirical. So like WebEx was successful by the Chinese entrepreneur. Wow, they were like $1 billion, kind of, right? It's sold to Cisco. And then more closely, another company called NetScreen, through 3 schoolmates. We all know them, right? And then they sold the company to actually Juniper for $4.3 billion. So this is like that is the background that we say, hey, we maybe if we are not a starting company, we need to help more people to start a company, because we knew when we raised money, it was super difficult. So this kind of the background. And it's definitely not, though the empirical experience was enough kind of motivation, we say, hey, can we repeat? But definitely not from like we have $1 and then how to allocate it, like a mentality. So that's the bottom up approach, and carry that kind of passion, and then until today, and we're still in business. Maybe we had I think we developed pretty solid return, and then we are still in business. That's kind of the way to look at it. Yeah,
that's all you can ask for. So have you continued that same bottom-up approach today, or are you now taking the more traditional approach of we're raising funds and then deploying that capital?
Yeah, so we are still we are kind of 14 years in. We are still in this adding in the new element, and then so we would not kind of abandon the roots, right? So the entrepreneur first kind of roots we coming into help, but we need to look at combine with the capital, because we do have different from the early ones. 100% our investors, LPs, were schoolmates, individual successful entrepreneurs, right? But now we do have, institutional investors. We have to take their thinking into the. But ultimately, it's the performance and the fund return, right? So that's that's important for everyone, right? So that's ultimately the measurement. If you choose to do managing money from other people, that's so.
Yep.
So that's kind of the combination today. Yeah.
And so speaking of fund returns, your biggest winner that you've had of all time came across your desk really only a year into starting the fund, which was Zoom back in 2011. Tell me a little bit more about that. How did that come across your desk? What was your thought process in terms of deciding whether or not to invest?
Yeah. So today, of course, we have like a 10 unicorn, a few went public, but the Zoom was by far still the greatest return in compared with others. So at that time, I think so. Yeah, I wrote an article about it, and I ran into Eric. We already knew each other, through a certain Chinese community social, and I ran into him in Santa Clara. So just to learn that he quit his job as a VP at the Cisco. At that time, WebEx was acquired maybe 1 year early, acquired by Cisco for $3.4 billion. WebEx already was a public company, and then he decided to do the next generation. The story was to do a next generation kind of product, targeting more mobile, and he couldn't waiting for getting the bonus, all that. I met him, and then the two employee number 1 and number 2 in his office in Santa Clara at that time. Show the leadership and taking the team right and out, super motivated. And then of course we need to look at another angle, which is the market. The market was a little bit controversial, a lot of discussion internally. Also, just like other typical investors, a lot of people decide not to do it with the Skype, FaceTime. But one thing was the Zoom, the mobile window was not if you really look at the market analysis, the mobile window was not totally closed. The Skype was there, but the product was not a super easy to use by those standards. So so combine the team and then the market. We had debate, and then we of course reach conviction, and then the team experience. We believe they can build a very good product. So that's kind of the background. We were among our other first round were all angels, and we become the kind of little fund, put the money into the fund. That's kind of the quicker background. Yeah.
And so we'll get into your investment criteria a little bit more in a bit, but I know that, spoiler alert, one of the biggest things that you look for is the team and the founders.
Yeah.
What did you see in Eric that gave you the confidence to be that first check?
Yeah, I think so. Here's the thing. So we typically more other deals, right? At that time, we actually kicked in the investment only January 11. From the July of 2020, we were all doing community work, doing marketing, doing business plan competition, that kind of work. So all the founder, they are Tsinghua University, they are whatever the more elite university students, right? So usually that's a profile. They came here to study, and then they go find a work. Eric was very different. Eric just directly, hired from WebEx from China to come work here. So he rise from the ranks, from the kind of engineer all the way to that level. So that is very, very important in the real, WebEx. I happen to know the founder is, so if it's a real, you have to earn it, right? That position, definitely not by you're granted or not. It's just that you earned super important for that earn that position, leadership position. So that's one. And then the way we talk to him, he at one point I met him first in the office with 3 people, and was deeply impressed. I took my partner Jim, and then we had a lunch, and then Eric was like, if I don't earn you 10x, I'm gonna return your money, all that stuff. Super driven, all that stuff. So it's so that the passion, and then of course earlier I mentioned he give away the bonus. If I need to wait for 3 weeks to get a bonus, he doesn't care. So that's kind of little also special for we feel this is a super driven entrepreneur. So
so there's
So
there's the signals in terms of the progression through the ranks, and then also on the personality side, the conviction and the passion and the determination.
Yeah, totally. And then of course the Cisco, I also know during the Juniper days, right, they buy a lot of companies, acquisition, right? So and then the WebEx software, the product in this big Cisco product line, it's very tiny. And then it's very understand, they don't get much resource, mind share to build the next generation, all that stuff. So nobody really maybe, the influence is very limited, right? So if you have a VP title, I think. So it's kind of connects. And then also know a lot of people leaving Cisco, creating great companies. So from external signal also kind of reinforce this kind of the signals.
100%. So obviously Zoom hasn't been your only win. You've had some really other great names. You've invested in Carta, you've invested in Iterable, you've invested in Ginkgo. But one of the underlying theses for your firm is that you invest in immigrant founders. Obviously you're an immigrant yourself. Is that the reason for the passion in backing immigrant founders? Have you found that there's data that causes them to outperform? Just walk me through your thought process on that.
Yeah. So we are also kind of all the analysis, all that, it's all afterwards, but we were kind of just dealing with the ecosystem. So the really fortunate, Tsinghua University was the kind of the very, if you go back to China, look for the entrepreneur percentage of Tsinghua is probably percentage-wise, maybe not the dollar amount. The number is pretty concentrated and maybe not number one. So lucky you have a lot of schoolmates. They are all technical background concentrated here in the Valley. Some people say it's $15,000 today or 20. I don't really know the exact number. So we had this biggest, the top talent, around us. So that's kind of get us the very good starting point. That is just kind of the starting from the ground up. That's kind of the, and of course, I mentioned earlier, WebEx, the family tree from WebEx, and then NetScreen, they all had a great success. And then, and also, so we know someone will be successful and hit big, right? So, but we in today we look back. Actually, the company we back, about 45 to 50% company has Chinese founders. Less percentage has the much lower percentage is the CEO. So sometimes they are just a technical role. For example, another call it Zoom, ZUM, right? So It's a she, and she actually from India. I think I think her brother also was the co-founder. And then we today it's a quite a sizable and successful, raising a lot of money company. But when we invested was really very, very early on, right? So we remember in Summertail, and then we also influenced by her passion, all that, sometimes influence us to write a check. So we kind of quite a say blind in terms of who we can have a chemistry, being in Silicon Valley, yeah, right. So that's kind of typical. We have co-works from everywhere, so we're all used to. But just by maybe affiliation, association, the Chinese entrepreneur continue to be quite a big chunk of the companies we back.
Okay, that's interesting. And funnily enough, I hadn't mentioned this to you, but I actually know Andrew over at Celential. I saw you had that exit recently, so congratulations. We actually did some work with them a couple of years ago.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. I see. Okay.
It's a small world.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I see.
So
yeah.
I'm curious, are there challenges? Obviously, being a founder is an incredibly hard job, regardless of your background, whether you're privileged, whether you're not, whether you're an immigrant, whether you're domestically born. Are there challenges that immigrant founders tend to commonly run into that founders that were born in the United States might not?
Yeah, totally. Yes, and some are more obvious for the Chinese, first generation founders. So that's kind of we hope to play a role, but that's play a role, but it doesn't mean we have the total solution.
Sure.
So there's I can name a few typical, right? First generation for us, the new generation gets better, but fundamentally still have, that we were not trained in school, especially engineering school, to articulate things well, communication, right? Public speaking, this kind of skill usually are lacking in this engineering school. Today is much better, but our day, so that's a typical pattern. So the articulate vision or all that stuff, that's kind of one of the could be easily kind of a weakness. And then another thing, it depends on person, right? So they, you need to adapt. You need to adapt to if your business is here, you need to adapt to the American culture. Sometimes, if you don't click, it's very hard for you to, maybe recruiting or sell your product, all that. So actually quite some challenges. And then, typically Chinese entrepreneurs, they do well in those less human touch business, like an EDA. You benchmark, your product works, other people, you do better than other product, then that product speaks for itself. But today it's rare, right? You have to communicate. Yeah, so that's Chinese entrepreneur definitely has some additional difficulties, than the people local.
And how do you suggest that they overcome those challenges? Is it just a matter of practice, or are there resources that you typically recommend?
Okay, so very good question. I think just think out loud. A lot of, I think there are professionals help you to kind of on the leadership training, marketing, even help you pitch how to do better pitch, all that stuff, right? That's kind of certain professionals, they can come in, do this. I think it's more important is for today. I think it's about entrepreneur, how quickly, kind of how quickly they can learn. We encourage it, but sometimes to be a CEO. So if we usually ask, do you want to continue to be the CEO, or you kind of a hire CEO or whatever, right? If you want to be that CEO, say that's nothing wrong with it, but you have to take on all the burden. You have to learn. You have to be the person. The buck stops at you. Nobody else. You take on all that load, and then so so we kind of mentally prepare for them, kind of, since we've seen more than them typically, and then we just point out, and hopefully they pick it up and echo, and then they are the one taking actions to how to address their kind of certain weaknesses. So another example I could, I mentioned, the articulation and storytelling usually are not super strong. Another thing for a technical founder could be they want to build a product, getting customer success, but they sometimes overlook the importance of putting a professional financial together. They think it's not kind of important, but actually I told them it's the opposite, right? So you need there's no such a thing as you have how many customers you acquire become the perfect point. Then you can raise money. It's a process. If you are not ready, if you cannot present a professionally down financials, people just write you off. And a lot of entrepreneurs, they kind of losing a lot by not pay attention to this. So those are the things we try to put our tips in front of our founders.
Right, because you have to, I mean, at the pre-seed stage, seed stage, everybody knows that those financials are not going to be the end all be all, right? But you have to have something just to show that, okay, this is how our users translate to revenue and our costs and so forth.
Yeah, definitely. So for a forecast, but that's a way for communicating with the investors and then your board or whatever you do for yourself to see how later on you execute how to benchmark with you. Otherwise, And then even for a certain company I saw, right, so they already have some tractions, a year or two, but they are too busy to put together a professional done, kind of for that's very rare for other type of entrepreneur we see, but for Chinese entrepreneur it still happens. It's kind of thing that we see.
Another question I had on challenges that that immigrant founders might run into, and I actually come from, I know I don't look it, but from a family of immigrants myself on my mother's side. Her mother moved from Peru back in the 70s, and a lot of times in immigrants, there's very much that hard work, nose to the grindstone mentality, but there oftentimes is also a little bit of a bias towards higher paid kind of status level positions. Your doctor, your lawyer, that type of thing. Do you tend to see founders running into doubt or lack of support from their families who may want them to go into a more stable, steady career?
With the time, things change quite a bit. So entrepreneur, because a lot of successful entrepreneur become kind of celebrity so it's more receptive. Traditionally, I agree. You do a startup, it's like it's not you cannot find a good job. That's why you do this kind of you don't know what you are doing. This is kind of no insurance. You're not dependable, right? It's job, right?
Yeah.
But the things are really, especially new immigrant, I think it really changed a lot. The early stage. That's why the field for early startup is getting more capital will actually coming, I feel, coming already a lot, maybe too many, but still coming in. I chatted with a lot of people running, manage bigger money, or their personal life, or their children, or many of them are got into entrepreneurship. So we end up with talking about that part, not the big fund managing endowment and that kind of a thing, but more on entrepreneur. So that's definitely getting more mind share. That's true for the immigrant and environment, and then especially in Silicon Valley, we see the momentum quite high. But at the same time, still a lot of parents say, hey, if you want to have a small startup, you say you join the startup or versus a big company. I recently still have friends say, hey, highly encourage kids, getting multiple offer, go to a big company like a Meta, all that stuff. So, yeah.
Well, it's good to hear the times are changing a bit.
Yeah.
I mentioned briefly earlier your investment criteria and what you
Yeah.
focus on. So I want to come back to that a little bit.
Yeah.
When you're at the seed level, I know we mentioned briefly the financials, but like we said, those are both just sort of best guesses. They're not going to be anywhere near as reliable as they would be in like a Series C, Series D, et cetera company.
Yeah.
So what you're really betting more at the seed level is your product, what sort of market you have, and the founder. And I know that you mentioned in a previous interview, if you say you have 5 investment criteria, it's because you count the team 3 times, right? What brought you to that decision?
Yeah, that's a very, very super great question. So somehow the first is the team and founder. We need to reach some kind of a personally. Everybody reach some kind of conviction, right? Of course, what does it mean, right? Okay, so of course we look at some signal we can collect. You can put a list, right? Okay, 100%. Of course, full time, right? I mean, easy checklist, and then why you want to start it, what's the background, and then can you convince others to join you or all that stuff. So that is kind of very, very also important, right? And then of course you have the good professional training. If you want to do a AI, or something, you have a good technical background to support it, right? So if you have doing hardcore tech, then you need to have some papers for us to digest. Okay, so on the team, but sometime we recently invest in a few deals. The practice is we collect 2 data points. It's because it's company earlier. When we talk to them, they maybe just formed the company. They want to figure out. So we collect 2 data points. Of course, we don't have the luxury collecting too many data points over too long period. But sometime over a period of 1 month or 2 or sometimes 3, we collect 2 data points. That become very also important. We see you said that you're gonna do this, and after the second data point, how much you have done. Because we first believe the founder they can do this. But then if we have a little bit of signal that tells us you can execute, it is super, super important to validate, because of course it's a validation process. But if we get a 2 data point, that's also, if it's feasible, then we collect 2 data points, right? So but overall on the team, we kind of relate to our experience, and then we really sometimes it's really hard to do it remotely, and we more right now before we write a check, we have a in person at least, right? The engagement, a long engagement, a few hours sometimes, and then really get a sense, how they think about this and all that. So we reach that feeling. If we don't have revenue to back it up, then we do more work here. So on the team side, and then we have 3 pillars, 2 other pillars. We have to at least have some supporting angle for 2 other elements.
I have to make a little bit of a joke that the first investor in Zoom says you need the in-person element, but yes, I totally get it. So then typically how long is that conversation? If you're looking for those 2 data points and some execution, how long typically is it from, say, that first conversation or that first pitch to writing a check?
Yeah, it kind of varies. If they already have some traction, then we let them to speak, right? So whatever the user or get some early paid customer, we do analysis on if there's some cohort, if they have numbers. Typical time could be very quick, like 1 to 3 weeks, or sometimes it's a little longer. If you do a kind of deep tech hardware company, then experience, it's become very, 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 very super, super important, right? You have done this, and then with business experience. So because we cover quite a big area, a broad area, so we adapt different companies, tweak it for different angle. That's kind of what we do. Yeah,
that makes sense. And And you mentioned deep tech, and in fact, on your LinkedIn, I think you have the deep tech decade.
Yeah.
What does that mean for you? What is that?
Yeah.
What do you think the rest of the decade looks like in terms of technology? What do you think the 2030s look like?
Okay. Great. Let me take a stab at it. So so one context is we have the software either word for successfully pretty right. So a lot of wealth created, successful company created because right, the SaaS software, right? The software that's creating a lot of it's a high margin business, right? Good growth, very good business model, right? So people love it. And then the peak was 2021, right? Everybody wanted to invest in SaaS company. Hey, give me a SaaS company, I want to invest.
It was a wild time.
Yeah, well, so multiple become 10, 20, 30, sometimes go to 40. It's crazy. So that's kind of the backdrop. And then so it's deep tech is more a long-term way. So the hardware has to catch up. It's already today, right? We say, the NVIDIA commanded the software margin, that's exceptional. But really for a good 10 years, nobody touched semiconductor, right? And all that. Now in the last 3 years, maybe also, so hardware come back. Eventually, it's a opportunity go. The other day, I just chatted with the legendary telecom investor, entrepreneur, Wu Chen. Was in the 90s and early 2000s, right? He had so many hits as an entrepreneur, and later on he turned into an investor. So yeah, we had a good chat, but he said the speed today is 5 to 10x the internet in the 90s speed. That's his view. So things are changing very, very fast. That's a side note. But the hardware opportunity, software run for a while, and then the hardware opportunity will emerge. Today in optics is back, right? Optic computing, all that I was at the Juniper at a certain point, you build the hardware and then not many cars on it. Why you want to keep building the hardware, right? Seem like it doesn't make sense. And then later on you catch. So right now we are in a wave of hardware, have a lot of opportunities coming again. Of course, the nature of these deep tech company, it's more capital intensive typically than a software company. But once you have the created good return, it will attract more investors. For example, one example I want to mention is one of the portfolio called eBots. They do the smartphone assembly. So what's the value? Smartphone assembly, because today you have typically, right, the 3-shift young Asian woman working on 3 shifts on the bench to do with a wiring, and a kind of connection, all that stuff. That is yet to be replaced by automation. So, so that we believe strongly that this vision, the road of getting there is quite a longer than typical software. But eventually we believe it will pay off, for example. So that's, but today, of course, everything today all have this AI engine in the back. It just sometimes pure software, sometimes show up in the more hardware form. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned NVIDIA as well, and they've obviously been the winners of the semiconductor race in the last few years with the GPUs, and everything is essentially running off of NVIDIA. And so is the thought then that, of course, other competitors will see this and say, okay, well, we need to get into the GPU business, but given that NVIDIA has a few years of head start, will probably be a few more years before we have any meaningful competitors on that side.
Yeah, that's a great way. So everybody is asking that question because they took such a long share of the market, and then definitely, for a while people say it's easily 3 years lead, right? Especially the CUDA, it's such a lock on the customer, all that. But clearly, all other companies, including one company we invest in called D-Matrix, they do inference chips. When you train a model, you want to run fast. Maybe you want to have the cheap chips than the NVIDIA, right? So there are quite a few companies in that space also. So it's just a ton of company. That's good about the market economy. So you have attract so many competition coming in, everybody want a piece of it. And then you further, of course, you need to also look at the energy, how energy consumption. That's one of the driver for optical computing, kind of coming in to help reduce the power consumption so that chip don't, get overheat or that. Right. So clearly, the competition also. Just today, nobody's come close to NVIDIA.
So invest for the next 3 years. Maybe I'll exit in 3-4 years. Is what you're saying? Cool. Yeah. Well, final question for you. Obviously, you have a wealth of advice for founders at the early stage, whether they're immigrants, whether they're domestically born. What would you say is some of the best advice you could give someone who maybe they're just starting and they just incorporated, or maybe they've gotten a little bit of traction? What would that be?
Yeah, of course, there are many things I could mention, but still I want to go to the roots, which is still I encourage to the advice is you have to mentally ready to do 1% better than others, and then keep it at it.
Consistency and effort, right?
Yeah. So it's no easy way to I kind of also talked to quite a few successful entrepreneurs. So there's just definitely no easy way. Sometimes I have this also interview series, but not a serious one. But on surface very successful, super smooth. But when you get into it, the company like almost died twice, all that. So it's you keep at it on top of it, and then maybe luck will come. And
then you break through, right?
Yeah.
Well, I love the no sugarcoating approach and the honesty. Eugene, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Okay, thank you, Reese. Great talking to you.
Thanks for listening to Seed to Exit. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.